Hey everybody, before I do the thing, this episode is brought to you by Ground News. Okay, now I'm gonna do the thing, here's the thing. Oh yeah, we did it folks! I didn't think we'd make it, it's real touch and go for a while, but we did it! I have so many people to thank, myself mostly, also people who aren't myself, like you. You should like and subscribe to thank me, who did it. Like all of you did it. And by it, I mean we got through 2026. Happy New Year, folks! Oh, wowee, and what a year it has been. It feels like 10 years, am I right? I haven't actually looked at a calendar in like 5 or 20 years, but I know a year when I feel one, and it's absolutely been 1 year since the start of 2026. Therefore, continuing to not look at a calendar, I have determined that it is time to celebrate and look back at all the wacky news misadventures we had in 2026. The longest year ever. Hit it, Mick! Looking back at 2026, the longest year ever. Classic Mick. I'm not having a nervous breakdown. Everyone keeps saying I'm having one of those, so I wanted to get that out of the way. But yes, I know what you're all thinking, and I'll just admit it here at the top of the video. Mick doesn't actually exist. I made him up for tax reasons. Oh my, tax season, am I right? Glad it's the end of the year and I don't have to think about that. Anyway, 2026. A lot happened. I mean, we probably can't even talk about all of this stuff. So let's focus on the big stories. Starting with that time we did the thing that America always does. You know the one. Operation Venezuela Freedom from Oil. Wow. Do you remember the invasion? I mean, I guess it was only a year ago, but it feels like centuries. Back at the start of 2026, the United States military invaded Venezuela and abducted its president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Mrs. Maduro. Maduro is now in prison in New York City facing terrorism and drug trafficking charges by the Department of Justice. It was one of those things that everyone kind of knew was gonna happen, including ourselves. That's because during the back half of 2025, the US built up one of the largest armadas of warships off the coast of Venezuela and conducted dozens of lethal strikes on alleged drug boats crossing the Pacific Ocean. So far, killing 130 people. Wow, remember all the boat strikes? Did we ever get to the bottom of those? Hegseth loved posting about our regular kinetic strikes on possibly fishing boats. Anyway, Trump and all his little pals spent months ratcheting up the rhetoric against Maduro, claiming without evidence that he was a major narco-drug trafficker that needed to be stopped at all costs. Remember that? Write it down. Meanwhile, based on reporting from inside the White House, everyone seemed to have their own personal reasons for why they wanted Maduro out. Stephen Meller wanted control over Venezuela to forcibly stop the flow of migrants into the United States, because he's a racist. Secretary of State Marco Rubio wanted to hurt the country's relationship with Cuba, because he's had beef with them for a while. And Trump wanted Venezuela's oil, because he's Trump and likes money and thinks oil equals money. It probably didn't help that when initially asked to exile himself and step down as president, Maduro refused and hosted this press conference.
No, no war, just peace. No a la guerra loca. No crazy, no crazy war, no.
Not trying to victim blame or anything, I'm just pointing out that Trump, a very petty and stupid man, probably took to that poorly. Maduro, by all accounts, seems to be a bad leader and an asshole. And then we have Trump, also a bad leader and an asshole, getting mad about it. And maybe they should have just met somewhere between the two countries, Haiti, I guess, and had a fist fight about it. I would have watched that, but instead we invaded a country and kidnapped their leader. And remember, officially, this is all because Maduro and his administration have been, according to Trump, trafficking drugs to the United States. That's our WMDs here. And immediately after we took Maduro, the promise from Trump was that we were going to bring down that entire administration. Because of the drugs, of course.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves.
We're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground.
Okay, well, oops. I guess he's already forgotten about the drugs, especially since we did not, in fact, take over Venezuela and facilitate a transition of power. Instead, the country is now being run by Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez. And let's just take a moment to sit with that. Trump and all his buds have been saying that Maduro is this terrible and vicious leader who has been sending drugs to our country. And then we just nabbed him and let his VP run the country instead. Because I guess she's not all those things they said Maduro was. His vice president? Surely she's reasonable. You know how when we took out Saddam, we just left his second in command in power? And he was all like, oh yeah, I hated that guy. Thanks. You get my point. Delcy Rodriguez represents the exact same regime that Maduro ran. The same regime that has disappeared political opposition and rigged elections. They're all still in control of every facet of Venezuela's government. Heck, this doesn't even match up with the drug trafficking excuse because she is also tied to drug trafficking. At least the same amount that Maduro was. Which is to say, not that much to begin with. It's just really insulting when you think about it. Trump claimed that he was concerned about Venezuela trafficking drugs into the United States and talked about how bad Maduro's leadership was, and then never actually bothered to do the thing where you pretend to change that. He just immediately started talking about oil because, as everyone knew, this was always about controlling Venezuela's resources and reasserting US dominance over rivaling foreign powers. And despite Maduro's vice president talking a big game, I'm guessing she is willing to play ball lest she be kidnapped too. So they just let her stay in power to do all the bad stuff they said they were there to stop. My feelings are complicated, to be clear. I'm not supportive of the United States going to other countries, kidnapping their leaders, and then forcing that country to pick new leadership. But I'm also not supportive of the United States going to other countries, kidnapping their leaders, and then just bouncing so their vice president is forced to take over. So I guess my feelings aren't complicated, actually. It's just so brazen that even we didn't think this specific thing would happen. War with Venezuela, sure, but not kidnapping the guy and leaving. In our last episode on Venezuela, we assumed that Trump would hand the country over to Venezuela's opposition party, led by Maria Corina Machado, on account of her openly cheering on the military aggression by the Trump administration, personally flattering Trump at every opportunity, and bragging to the investor class that a Maduro-free Venezuela would bust open that delicious money spigot.
We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power.
If you recall, she even gave her own Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, who proudly accepted it like a rich kid getting a Most Beautiful Fancy Boy award from his au pair. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but while this is cosmically embarrassing for Trump, it's far worse for Machado, since Trump absolutely did not give her power in Venezuela. In fact, that's so funny that it actually cancels out the embarrassment. Trump gleefully took this lady's Peace Prize, posed on camera doing it, and then gave her nothing in return. That is incredible. And it's 100% on Machado, considering that everyone should know at this point, in late 2026, that Donald Trump uses people. He uses people up until he needs to dump them, like he has for so many people who have worked for him and supported him, which includes everyone from world leaders to everyday citizens. And he doesn't even hide it anymore in his, let's say, more advanced years. Trump really seems to have lost his filter. Like a toddler at a dinner party, his garbage mouth just dumps out the last thing he was thinking or heard. So he's just like, well, we want the oil. We take the oil, folks. And everyone just kind of accepts that, since they also want the oil. Because, as we've noted several times, what we did in Venezuela isn't exactly new. We're just not usually this overt about it. What Trump did is essentially a callback to the Monroe Doctrine. That was, as one imagines, a doctrine spearheaded by President James Monroe in 1823. It served as a warning to European nations to quit propping up puppet monarchs in countries that surrounded the US. Not because we thought it was immoral to do, but because we wanted to puppet those nations. Stay out of our hemisphere, damn it! That's ours. Subsequent presidents like Theodore Roosevelt extended that doctrine as a justification to invade Latin American countries in order to safeguard American business interests and keep European colonists out. We love this idea that if we don't invade a country, then some other country will do it anyway, so we best do it first. For security. And Trump, being the garbage-mouthed toddler that he is now just saying we're gonna do a bigger and better version with the explicit goal of dominating the Western Hemisphere.
The Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again.
Did he just rename it the Donroe Document? There's something deeply grotesque about the image of somebody watching this in South America and hearing the very stupid president slur through how he wants to invade their country based on a thing he clearly just learned about. Like, it's not enough that we're gonna do imperialism, but we can't even do it articulately? That's where I draw the line. Whatever, not the most pressing concern. Anyway, in an interview with the New York Times, Trump said there are no bounds or constraints to his own power beyond my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. And, that's a concerning thing to say for many reasons. He's talking like Morpheus. Dare I speculate, it seems like the president is losing his goddamn motherfucking mind. I suspect he suspects that he is going to die pretty soon, possibly because of some unreported health reasons. And he seems desperate to get his name on something that will last beyond his years. Be that the Donroe Document, or the Kennedy Center, or Greenland. Oh boy, the Greenland stuff. That brings me back because, hey, remember how Venezuela wasn't even the only country we bullied this year? Let's go to a break for ads, and then when we return, we will reach back into this wet and wild year and talk about another place we wanted to invade. Happy New Year! Hey! Remember at the beginning when I said this episode was brought to you by Ground News? That's what us insiders call foreshadowing. Now for the payoff. I'm here to tell you about Ground News, a website and app we specifically sought out to sponsor us, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. They gather news from dozens, nay hundreds of sources alongside critical context on each source so that you can compare all the coverage of every story yourself. I've been working with Ground News for a long time, and that is for a reason. They're one of the most powerful solutions for getting to the truth of a story, given all the spin you'll see online. For example, did you see that SpaceX has shifted strategies and will now try to build a city on the moon instead of Mars? Presumably because Elon just realized that the moon is a little bit closer. On Ground News, you can see that both left and right-leaning sources stayed pretty fair and balanced TMCR about this, though all sources seem to presume that Musk is acting in good faith and has any ability whatsoever to build an interplanetary city. And And with Ground News' Vantage Plan, you can see which podcasts talk about that story and the timestamps of where the commentary starts. So head over to ground.news/SMN for 40% off unlimited access. You'll get a factuality analysis of each source and access to their blind spot feature to see which stories are being passed over and by whom. That's ground.news/SMN for 40% off. The link is in the description. The moon, maybe it'll have a city on it in 2036. Who knows? I do, it won't. But maybe. Nah. Maybe? No. But maybe he'll be like, okay, so we're no longer gonna have a base on the moon, but we will be building one in Texas, which was my plan all along. A colony in Texas. Please like me. All right, bye.
It's been 2026 for a while now. So yeah, I could tell you again about how 2026 came in hot, and so did Pluto TV. And yeah, I could let you know that they've got even more movies and TV shows you love, that it's a brand new year, but the same kind of free. I could tell you all that. The same way I could very easily tell you about fan favorite movies like Dreamgirls, Gladiator, No Frisket, No Trisket, Lummy the Dummy Mummy, Arthro-Todd, Hank Lecter, Boy Cannibal, Interstellar. Anybody remember Five Alive? Solar Babies 2, this time with rollerblades. My Bonnie Hunt Lies Over the Ocean, Fahrenheit 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, and Zoolander. And I could tell you about all the binge-worthy TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, Hamlet Trots to Camelot, C-Suite Battle Royale, Kiki Palmer's Delivery Service, The Fairly Odd Parents, The Patently Normal Parents, The Overly Silly Parents, The Parents Who Are a Bit Much, The Parents Who Always Keep Way Too Much Soda in the House, The Farmer's Noses, and The X-Files. I could tell you about all that stuff, but I won't, because there's no time, there's no more time. Pluto TV, stream now, pay never.
Welcome back, folks. Boy, 2026. What a year. Glad it's almost over. We were just remembering how Trump briefly invaded another country and kidnapped their president for reasons he didn't actually care about or follow up on, and then just said he wanted the oil because he wanted the oil. Like the aforementioned toddler just pawing at everything he sees at the supermarket. A man looking for something, anything, to stamp his name on to ensure some kind of flaccid little legacy before he moves along, if you catch my drift. Enjoys his sunset years. Takes a trip to the old fiery basement, if you get me. Dies and goes to hell. And while most shitty old dudes just try to reconcile with their kids or get their name put on the park bench they like to masturbate on, Trump is taking a slightly different approach. Greenland 2, Migration. Yeah, we just used the title of that movie. What of it? It's good. I haven't seen it. I will not. So Trump used the momentum of toppling Venezuela to renew his calls to take over the Danish territory of Greenland, telling reporters, if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. Unless he's talking about an erection that he may or may not be able to achieve these days, one assumes the hard way entails going to war with NATO, a group of European countries that have been our allies since World War II. He has since, as the press says, softened on this, presumably because somebody in the room with him realized this was bad, told him that, and somebody who thought it was good wasn't the most recent person to talk to him. Also, it doesn't help that NATO absolutely didn't go along with his plan, to which Trump gave a very stern rebuke during his visit to Davos.
Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. Very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being.
Okay, seriously, what the f is he talking about? Iceland? Daddy? Ugh, look, I know I'm not pioneering thought here, but can we not get rid of this guy as our president? It seems bad to have someone in charge who's both bloodthirsty and incoherent. It's like giving a rabid squirrel a pilot's license. Certainly, we can do better here. We then got the fucking press secretary trying to lie and say that, actually, Greenland is a piece of ice, so the very smart president didn't misspeak. Holy shit. Reportedly, literally, Iceland, the country, got confused and thought he was threatening them as well. Like, holy goddamn shit. I don't know if I've said the word embarrassing enough, so I'll say it again. Embarrassment. Fucking. I'll do better next time. So yeah, in, I guess, fairness, Trump did use this speech to walk back the threat of using force to acquire Greenland. Sort of. Technically.
We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
Right. They could use force, but they won't. But they could. And if they did, it would be forceful. But they won't. We just want a place called Greenland. We're not asking for much. And if we don't get it, we will remember. Man, it still kind of sounds like he's going to use force. Kind of hard to tell when you're dealing with someone who is regularly incoherent and constantly changes his stances. Seems like a bad president. By the way, there's no clear reason why we would need Greenland. The administration says the US needs Greenland for the security and protection of the Western Hemisphere. But we already have a military base on Greenland. We've had a military presence on Greenland since 1953, and I'm sure NATO would allow us to have a larger presence if we weren't threatening to invade them. The Trump administration has also been transparent that the US needs access to the rare earth minerals stored deep under the Greenland tundra. Let's say that's true. We need the minerals for our stupid as f*** trucks, but we actually don't need to own Greenland in order to mine those minerals. Greenland, at least up to this point, is already open for business to American industries. American mining companies could likely get permits right now and mine, but likely don't because Greenland is an incredibly harsh environment. It takes a massive amount of capital and infrastructure just to get started. Could Trump offer billions of taxpayer dollars to get mining companies started? Sure, but is that worth going through the pains of bullying a country out of its land? I'd say no, but I'm no president, I guess. The other guy is. You know the guy. I just needed to be clear how Trump not only is speaking gibberish, but also acting gibberish. He's a guy at the bar getting into fights for no discernible reason. Perhaps he simply saw those Greenland movies recently. I don't know. I suspect it's what I said before. Actually, I suspect it's mostly because he actually does believe in climate change. And they're like, well, we'll wait a little while in Greenland. It'll be easier to be there eventually because the climate change is real. But also, it's mostly because Trump is blindly grasping for some kind of legacy, something to put his name on. He tried to do the wall, but that didn't really pan out. Like Ben Stiller in There's Something About Mary, his ballroom has hit some snags. He wanted Canada briefly, and still does, it seems. He recently posted an AI image of the Western Hemisphere draped in red, white, and blue. Seems like a f***ed up thing for a president to do. Trump clearly thought that being the president was going to be like in the movies, giving big important speeches and shooting down alien spaceships with Randy Quaid's help. But all he ended up with was that very last part. He saw Obama sashay his big dick on TV and announce that they killed Osama bin Laden. He saw Bush strut around at Ground Zero and do a big important war. He maybe realized tossing some paper towels wasn't going to cut it. And it never occurred to him that there's a lot of boring stuff presidents have to do with, like, the economy and domestic agendas and legislation and all the actual leadership junk. He just wants his big presidential moment, his golden prize being handed to him. And the clock is ticking. And it feels like, since he can't get credit for saving America, he could settle for being the guy who destroyed it.
In a text message to Norway's prime minister yesterday, Trump said, quote, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace."
That just about sums it all up. If he can't get his award, then he's gonna take it. Burn bridges on behalf of the entire country. Our relationship with NATO is very long-lasting and consequential. It's not like changing the design of the Oval Office. I'm not saying it can't ever be changed, but it certainly shouldn't be destroyed on a whim by one guy for no discernible reason beyond his petty dying brain. It's hard to remember this, but we technically hired Trump to do a specific job. I mean, I didn't hire him, but the country did, I guess. We gave him the keys to our car with the assumption that he'd drive us somewhere good, and now he's trying to take the doors off the hinges and sell the engine. In fact, he hates the car, it seems. He and his weird little helpers seem to have disdain for the fundamental concept of America. Recently, Trump's pocket monster, Stephen Meller, floated the idea of having, like, slaves? Saying, quote, "Plenty of countries in history have experimented with importing a foreign labor class. The West is the first and only civilization to import a foreign labor class that is granted full political rights, including welfare and the right to vote. All visas are a bridge to citizenship." So first of all, I'm going to reiterate what he said there. Plenty of countries in history have experimented with importing a foreign labor class. He's talking about slavery. He's talking about importing foreign labor class and making them slaves in history, historically. That's what he's talking about. Then he added, in America, for generations now, the policy has been that anyone who would economically benefit from moving to the US can do so, exercise the franchise in the US, and their children, the moment they are born, will be full American citizens with all the rights and benefits therein. So aside from bringing up that historically, other countries in the past have imported a foreign labor force that they didn't give rights to, wonder what he's talking about there, he's also describing and criticizing the literal American dream. He's pointing out the American dream that anyone can come here and prosper, including himself, and he's like, ew, no. They hate America. They hate that America has to work within peaceful boundaries. They hate that America is a melting pot that has prospered for centuries off of immigration and multiculturalism. The people running our country do not care for this country. And that, of course, brings us to the third invasion we need to discuss. The one where we invaded the United States' true enemy, the United States. Battle Minneapolis. Remember Battle Los Angeles? I don't. Didn't see it, won't see it. But remember Minneapolis? I do. Let's talk about it. How ICE kidnapped all those people and beat those people and pepper sprayed those people and flashbanged a baby and shot and killed some people and went around dressed as the villains in a Call of Duty game, and people were debating whether or not that was all bad. What a year. What a year. Now, before we get into some of the horrific incidents and crimes committed by ICE and Border Patrol in the last month, 10 months ago or 11 months ago, whatever it is, I think it's important to remember one of the reasons why it happened in the first place. Specifically with this guy.
And the childcare center is locked. Should we ring the doorbell? Yeah. Try to get in, rang the doorbell, nobody showed up. They're open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. it says here on their sign, yet there's absolutely nobody here. And this building here, right here, has generated millions of dollars, and seems like business isn't even open right now, and it's a weekday.
This is Nick Shirley, some YouTube prank-style turd who got tired of slop prank tubing and now pushes far-right propaganda slop for dumb racist people. That clip was from a 45-minute deep dive video where Nick claims to have found a lucrative billion-dollar fraud operation perpetrated by the Somalian community within Minneapolis. In the video, Nick visits 9 daycare centers that receive federal funds, focusing on the ones operated by Somali Americans. In one instance, Nick lies to staff members at a daycare center, telling them that he wants to enroll his fictitious son.
Are you a news reporter?
My name's Nick. We're doing a little documentary trying to find little Joey a spot to put himself in one of these centers here, because there's
Why are you asking us about
the fraud.
frauds and stuff like that?
Yeah, because we want to make sure we're going to legit business if we're going to bring our little boy Joey here.
This is not a Joey spot. Yeah. But that's our number on the other bill. But this is we can't let you guys use. So.
Okay, thank you. So once again, little Joey, he can't even go to daycare, and now they won't even accept him if he has autism.
Very stupid stuff. Throughout that video, he often points out that he can't see into the centers, or that he doesn't see children, or was denied by the front desk staff members from entering the childcare facilities, and that this is somehow proof that these centers are fraudulent. You know how daycares normally let random childless guys with cameras come in and check out the children? Again, very stupid and obvious liar. Prank tube stuff. In fact, one daycare center operator told the Washington Post, rest in peace, that they didn't open the door for Nick because he was accompanied by 6 or 7 other men with masks on and suspected that they might be from ICE. Dudes with masks on. And he's all like, geez, why isn't anyone letting us in? Must be fraud, not very malevolent of them. But despite this video being very obviously stupid and a lie by a dipshit who's stupid and a liar, Nick's video got the attention of the right thanks to a few things. 1, racism. 2, local prick and Vice President J.D. Vance tweeted it out saying that Shirley deserves a Pulitzer Prize. But 3, he's grifting off of a real problem Minnesota has been dealing with, specifically fraudulent activity within their federally subsidized daycare program, among others, over the last decade or so. In 2019, state investigators found around $6 million worth of fraudulent activity, and the state attorney general ended up prosecuting around a dozen people for defrauding the state's childcare program. Is there still some fraud happening in the state? Yes. A 2025 report by the Department of Health and Human Services found that errors with payment occurred at 11% of the centers of the 1,155 they surveyed in 2023. Of course, the existence of errors in payment doesn't necessarily mean there was fraud, but overall, Minnesota has been very openly dealing with fraud cases, the same way other states are also dealing with fraud. It's the same thing that Doge did. Find fraud that was already being investigated or prosecuted and patting themselves on the back for exposing the secret fraud. It's not a secret being blown open. But of course, Nick was banking off of that other reason I mentioned, the racism reason, by putting the Somali American community at the center of this issue. Nick's main source in the video is this guy, David Hoke, a prominent GOP lobbyist in Minnesota with connections to Republican lawmakers in the state house. Hoke's now deleted social media posts include racist bangers such as "Every Somali in Minnesota is engaged in fraud. All of them. And even the blacks have had enough of the demon Muslims." So there you go. A dumb guy teaming up with a racist guy who's also a dumb guy to make a Project Veritas level scam video for the clicks. A video only a stupid person or racist liar would promote, which, on a related note, happened. As we mentioned, stupid racist liar J.D. Vance would go on to share this video on that racist liar website, saying that the video, again, deserved a Pulitzer Prize. And then, about a week later, his administration would send an extra 2,000 immigration officers into Minneapolis to ramp up the harassment and terrorizing of its citizens. It also doesn't help that the President of the United States is a deeply racist dude who has expressed open disdain for the Somali American community, specifically targeting Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar.
The stepped-up enforcement, dubbed Operation Metro Surge, follows President Trump's repeated attacks on Minnesota's Somali community.
They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Their country stinks.
The president also singled out Ilhan Omar, the progressive Somalia-born Minnesota congresswoman who he's long criticized.
Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain.
Wow, he's pretty racist. Seems like that clip alone should cause everyone to demand that he no longer be the president. But, well, you know. It should be noted that 87% of the foreign-born Somali population in Minnesota are United States citizens, and 58% of the total Somali population in the area were born here, which means that 94.5% of the Somali population are United States citizens. This isn't an epidemic of illegals or whatever. They're just being racist. The president is racist against the Somali American population and sent goons to go get them. And Nick's video gave them a beautiful bit of propaganda to increase their attacks, which then escalated into more kidnapped citizens and the murders of 2 innocent people. It's technically not all Nick Shirley's fault, but to be fair and balanced, let's do a segment called, Hey Nick Shirley, this is all your fault and you should feel bad about that.
What do you mean by the word benevolent?
Hey Nick Shirley, this is all your fault and you should feel bad about that. You teamed up with a racist and made a propaganda video to help fascists terrorize innocent people, resulting in many injuries and deaths. Here's you bragging about your video causing the reaction in Minneapolis. You should feel bad and question your life. Nick's a young guy, he's like 15 or 30, and so he has plenty of time to turn it around. Maybe go to college, trade school, get into hotel management or plumbing or something. Get married if you want to. Leave the public eye. Turn back now, because otherwise, I can tell you your entire future, and it's grim. At best, you'll be a flash-in-the-pan podcast/YouTube guy who maybe gets rich pushing right-wing propaganda up until you fizzle out and lose all relevancy and no one remembers you for the rest of your life, during which you will feel a profound sadness and anger that you will never fully comprehend. You will eventually die unloved, having made the world a worse place to live in. But this is a moment right now where you can muster up some self-awareness and shame and look at the horrors you helped cause. Or you can double down, envelop yourself in a far-right bubble of liars, get a job from Tim Pool or Daily Wire or whatever, and begin to callous your soul as you drift further and further away from basic human decency and empathy until your essence fades into some kind of hate wraith that drifts, forsaken, on X the Everything app. Your call. This has been Hey Nick Shirley, this is all your fault and you should feel bad about that.
What do you mean by the word benevolent?
Neat. Hopefully that will be our last segment ever on Nick, Don't Call Me Nick Shirley. Anyway, we should actually talk about Minneapolis and not this grimy wiener. But first, we got ads. Smelly ads. We love you, smelly ads. Let's watch those now and take a whiff.
If you've ever been in the market for a new home, you know home shopping can be a lot. There's so much you don't know and so much you need to know. What are the neighborhoods like? What are the schools like? Who is the agent and who knows the listing or neighborhood best? And why can't all this information just be in one place? Well, now it is on Homes.com. They've got everything you need to know about the listing itself. But even better, they've got comprehensive neighborhood guides and detailed reports about local schools, and their agent directory helps you see the agent's current listings and sales history. Homes.com collaboration tools make it easier than ever to share all this information with your family. It's a whole cul-de-sac of home shopping information, all at your fingertips. Homes.com. We've done your homework.
Okay, all things considered, those were way less smelly than I represented them to be. I'm so sorry. They smelled pretty good. I hope you took a whiff. Also, smelly could mean smelly good, smelly bad. There are many smells in the world. The point is, those ads were less smelly, in the bad way, than Nick Shirley, who made a propaganda video egging on the Trump administration as they ramped up ICE operations in Minneapolis. Operation Metro Surge has since expanded into the largest deployment and operation of immigration agents in history. At least 3,000 federal agents, many of them heavily armed, were scouring the streets of Minneapolis and its surrounding suburbs, essentially profiling people based on their skin color or perceived ethnicity, a tactic that was greenlit by our almighty Supreme Court back in September. Thus, Minneapolis transformed virtually overnight into a show me your papers city, the worst kind of city.
Do you have an ID on you, ma'am?
I don't need an ID to walk around in my city. This is my city.
Okay, do you have some ID then, please?
I don't need an
If
ID.
not, we're going to put you in the vehicle and we're going to ID you. Huh?
I'm not going to take out, you take out your ID.
You don't have an ID?
I'm not going to take out an ID.
Hey man, it's
I am U.S. citizen. I am U.S. citizen.
All right, can we see an ID, please?
I am U.S. citizen. This is my home.
You realize that if you lie that you're a U.S. citizen,
Minneapolis is my home.
then you can get
Minneapolis
federal
is my
charges.
home. I belong here. I'm sorry. I belong here.
yeah.
I'm not going to take out an ID. What the
Notice how they just walk away after threatening to detain the lady for not showing her ID? Well, that's because going around and demanding that people out in public show their identification and proof of citizenship without cause is unconstitutional. The Fourth Amendment protects individuals from unlawful search and seizure. The First Amendment gives you the right to be walking around without having to carry an ID. This hasn't stopped ICE from constantly harassing people in public for proof of identification, which, to stress, is deeply unconstitutional. They've also detained people who have shown their ID simply because the ICE officer was too stupid to recognize it as one. They've also begun breaking into people's homes and dragging them out without a warrant, because I guess they decided they could do that. You've no doubt seen all the horrors, the child abductions and traumatizations, protesters brutalized. Even the cops aren't safe. At least won't somebody think of the cops? Overall, federal agents have made over 3,000 arrests in Minneapolis so far, but only 5% of those arrested have violent criminal records. And even some of those violent criminals that ICE is taking credit for capturing were already in custody and have just been transferred from state prisons into federal custody. The reaction from the citizens of Minneapolis has been exactly what you'd expect when dudes in masks are walking around abducting their neighbors with impunity. They've protested and built support systems, filmed ICE whenever they could, and of course created warning systems like honking their horns or blowing whistles to alert people that ICE is around, which is needed and, importantly, legal. When ICE is literally eating at restaurants, finishing their meals, and then detaining the people working at those restaurants who made them their meals, they've created an ecosystem where you have to alert people wherever ICE is at any time, when they're eating, or at their hotels, or taking a dump. Considering some of these ICE agents may be all three at once, they could and will grab any non-white person they see. So ICE began to turn on the protesters themselves, using their facial recognition technology to track and compile lists as if exercising your free speech rights was some sort of terrorist act. We know this because they just flat out said it.
It's not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
This, of course, along with the work of our buddy Nick the Dip Shirley, led to the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. While many online grifters have tried to eke out some sweaty justifications for these two murders, everyone with eyes could see what happened. We're not going to sit here and explain how Renee Good, while turning her car, did not deserve to be shot 3 times by a federal officer who should be trained not to stand near the front of the car to begin with, who was filming it with his phone while he killed her, and then proceeded to call her a fucking bitch after, and then left the scene of the crime. We're not going to explain how it's bad that a group of Border Patrol agents tackled, pepper sprayed, beat, disarmed, and then shot Alex Preddy so many times for the crime of trying to help a person to their feet who federal agents had just shoved over. These were, for everyone still existing in reality, 2 very shocking moments. When you watch these events, the natural reaction is to assume the officers involved would immediately go to jail for this, because that's what normally happens, even with cops. Like, yeah, there have been a lot of times cops don't get in trouble for stuff like this, but when it's so overtly caught on camera, usually the government has no choice but to go, you got us, and throw that cop in jail. Bad apples, am I right? But instead of doing that bare minimum bullshit, our own government immediately, and without any good reason, labeled both Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists.
When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
She can't even say ideological or ideological. Try it again, you idiotogical, you person. Anyway, this is fucking nuts. Like, it's all been fucking nuts, but every time I think we've hit the cap of nuts, they've managed to burst through that cap like a fascist jack in the box. A jackboot in the box. And while it is beyond disturbing for our government to, before they even have any information, posthumously call the innocent people they executed terrorists in order to justify it after the fact, it's actually more disturbing when you remember the thing I said before this, that ICE had been going around filming protesters and saying they're going on a list of domestic terrorists, and that days before his death, Alex Preddy had a previous run-in with ICE, and I can't help but wonder, what if they recognized him when they killed him? Just a thought, just a little innocent thought that keeps repeating in my brain every day while I try to sleep and eat and shower and use power tools. Like, if this is the stuff out in the open, I would love to know the stuff they aren't telling us. Oh, also, none of the shooters are in any major trouble, as of this video at least. Some paid leave, reshuffling, and in the case of Preddy, they didn't even want to tell us their names. The DOJ eventually opened a civil rights investigation, but only for Preddy, it seems. Because when they naturally started to investigate Good's killing, they were told by Kash Patel and other officials to stop. Oh, also, and this is important, Preddy and Good were not nearly the only people shot by immigration officers in the last year. 14 fucking other people have been shot, and in a few of those cases, our government has tried to press charges against those people after they were shot, only to have those charges dismissed. One of those people was, of course, Marimar Martinez. You know, the lady who was shot 5 times for warning people about an ICE vehicle while she was driving to church, who the government claimed was trying to ram an ICE agent who was boxed in by 10 other cars, despite surveillance footage showing 0 cars boxing in ICE. And the agent who shot her said, quote, "Do something, bitch," before shooting her. And then after shooting her, bragged about it in the grossest possible way, texting to another agent, quote, "I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys." Oh, also, the director of the fucking FBI posted a video claiming it was of this event, even though it wasn't, and hasn't deleted that post. So, yeah. An ICE agent clearly got mad that this lady warned people he was there, pulled up in front of her car, screamed at her, and then shot her 5 times. And then our government lied about it and even posted false video evidence. Extremely bad stuff. But hey, The Democrats are on it. What with their demands for body cameras, because maybe a seventh angle of a shooting will get some accountability. Also, they demand the removal of masks. Maybe. Actually, don't worry about the masks. I don't know. Maybe they will pull it together by the time you're watching this. We recorded this before they decide on the DHS stuff. I mean, we recorded this at the end of the year. The year is over. Mick told me so. I miss my drill. Anyway, the administration eventually did the barest of minimums to pretend like they cared about this. They have been pulling small numbers of ICE agents from the area and used immigration chief Gregg, that Nazi cosplayer guy, as a patsy and demoted him. I'm sure Trump is saying that he won in Minneapolis and is posting AI images of Tim Walz in handcuffs and a sombrero for some reason. I haven't checked. I don't want to check. I won't check, but it's important to remember that this all started thanks to some YouTube grifter helping Trump and his VP actualize their racism and political hatred for a few specific people in that state. JD, any thoughts about any of this? I know you love to tweet about stuff.
Did you plan to apologize to the family of Alex Peretti?
For what?
For, labeling him an assassin with ill intent.
Well, again, I just described to you what I said about Alex Peretti, which is that he's a guy who showed up with ill intent to an ICE protest.
No, but if it's determined that his civil rights were violated by this FBI investigation, will you apologize to that?
So, if this hypothetical leads to that hypothetical leads to another hypothetical,
it's a real case.
Will I do a thing?
Right. Look at his little doughboy smirk. He can't even apologize in a hypothetical. Low IQ stuff, JD. A hypothetical isn't a hypothetical about a hypothetical that leads to another hypothetical. It's just a simple question. Your answer makes you sound stupid and, dare I say, dishonest, and dare I say, like an evil piece of shit. What we're seeing here is an administration dipping their toe into brutalizing anyone exercising their constitutional rights when it pertains to stuff they don't like. That includes the Second Amendment as well, since they tried repeatedly to use Peretti's legally owned firearm that he was not brandishing as a justification for his murder. But especially, they are going after those First Amendment rights. According to a leaked memo from the Department of Justice, Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote that her office would begin to investigate those protesting against Trump's immigration policies as domestic terrorists. Her definition includes those who express opposition to law and immigration enforcement, extreme views in favor of mass migration and open borders, adherence to radical gender ideology, as well as anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity. Extreme views in favor of open borders and gender ideology and anti-capitalism, because we gotta get all those extreme gender terrorists going around setting off their gay bombs everywhere and making people trans. This has actually been brewing for a while. So now the government is parading an army of masked thugs asking to see your papers and labeling you a terrorist if you express broad left-leaning views. Now, you'd think that this is where a lot of Second Amendment, free speech warrior, libertarian types would be salivating at their bearded mouths. After all, isn't this what folks like the Oath Keepers pretended to exist for? Surely the folks who were so against the mask and vaccine mandates are speaking up. It's like Charlie Kirk said, the Second Amendment is there to ensure that free people can defend themselves if, God forbid, government became tyrannical and turned against its citizens. Where are all my Kirk heads at? All my huge, oddly shaped Kirk heads. Yeah, you know the answer. I don't need to tell you that they don't give a shit. I don't need to tell you how, after a decade of talking up this secret government cabal of pedophiles stealing children and doing tyranny, all of those people have decided to sit it out when the government is actually protecting rich pedophiles and openly stealing children and doing tyranny. They love being tread on now. It's how they come. Poor lads, roaming the earth, parched for a single drop of being tread on, breaking into department stores and begging security guards to put them in a headlock. They're bananas for it. Just listen to this crabby adult child describe his profound adoration for that big, beautiful boot.
First of all, when these people come out and go, Tim's a bootlicker for defending us, I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground. I ain't licking anybody. I'm clapping for these people that I said, please go out and enforce the law. And anybody else who's cheering for it, who voted for it too, we're all wearing the boots. You're the one crying.
Tim, I think cheering for the boot is the same as being a bootlicker. You very stupid person. You just said, I'm not a bootlicker. I just love the boot. I don't lick the boot. I clap for the boot. Same thing, Tim. You're stupid. And no, you aren't wearing the boot, Tim. Trump is. ICE is. Are you a member of ICE or the Trump administration? Boy, are you stupid fucking idiot. Take off the hat. You've got to be like 40 years old now. Take it off. I'll give you $5 to take it off. I know that's not secret Russian propaganda money, but please consider it with your stupid brain. Although Tim, to his credit, does perfectly sum up the idiot thinking behind many right-wing stupids who suddenly love government overreach and tyranny. These dips looked at years of right-wing ideology being closely associated with terrorism, probably because the vast majority of political violence has been caused by people on the right, which is just a fact. Trump supporters literally stormed the Capitol and wanted to hang the vice president. And a lot of grifters on the right, instead of reflecting on this reality, sort of threw up their hands and said, well, I want to call the left terrorists too. So they started to try and manifest this fake world where left-wing violence is actually the big problem. It's the trans who are violent, you see. The DOJ under Trump even deleted the data that said otherwise. Charlie Kirk's assassination gave them something to glom onto, despite all the other instances of right-wing violence happening around the same time. And this continued to escalate, this victimhood, until it somehow morphed all the way to, yeah, actually, we are the boot, as if that is some kind of brave stance to take. They created a victim complex for just long enough to justify being the attacker, the thing they always were, but more vocally now. It sounds bleak, but as we end this year, I do want to note that I'm not hopeless. Because we sort of skimmed over, yes, every month but January, but also over the big lesson from all of this. Our government invaded a state and a city in the hopes that they could harass and kidnap the citizens under the excuse of immigration control. And the majority of that city united to tell them to f*** off. Most people aren't buying their bullshit. Most people can see who the actual aggressors are, and everyday citizens joined with seasoned activists to strategize an effective resistance. It's been ugly and tragic and still not over. People got hurt and killed, but nobody looked away. And all over this country, people have been doing similar demonstrations, from small towns to big cities. This isn't a blue state issue. Here's a video from San Antonio, Texas, where ICE entered someone's home seemingly without a warrant, and the residents of that home fought back as best they could.
Get out the house! No warrant! You don't need to touch him. Why are you touching him? Why are you touching him?
The agents eventually left without arresting anyone. The incident is leaving big questions about why agents were there.
Absolutely terrifying goons attacking United States citizens everywhere. But they left with nobody, and those residents showed some real spunk. That's Minneapolis spunk right there. Good, fresh spunk. The kind of fresh spunk we need to spray all over America. I'm sorry for saying spunk so much on purpose. But going back to the big lesson, it's that Trump really thought he could go to the Midwest and bully some good-natured people around. Minneapolis wasn't the first, but it was clearly the biggest operation for ICE, and it is going very badly for them. ICE agents are not happy. They didn't get their bonuses, it seems, because as I said at the start of this, nobody should ever trust Donald Trump. They are cut off from humanity, extremely unliked, and had their dicks pushed into the dirt of Minneapolis, a city to which we owe a debt of gratitude, and of which we should be in awe, because they have now set the standard for how every city needs to react when ICE shows up. Just say no to ICE. Drugs are fine. Just say no to ICE. And not all drugs. ICE is it's meth, right? So say no to meth. Smoke weed every day. So, boy, that was 2026. I mean, what a year. I'm so glad it's over. And those 3 stories were the only news from this year. I'm sorry, what? Okay, some stuff we didn't get to that I should mention real quick. Don Lemon was arrested for reporting on a story, and there was a lot of Epstein stuff, like how Elon Musk begged to party on the island, and also, unrelated, gave a Nazi $1 million. And also, Donald Trump has sued the IRS and Treasury, which kind of means he's suing all of us. Also, Turning Point did a competing halftime show because they're mad that a brown person did the real one. And also, both Erica Kirk and Candace Owens are saying that Charlie Kirk had literal magic powers. Also, Catherine O'Hara died. That really sucked. Also, James Vanderbeek, rest in peace. Washington Post layoffs were a thing, and Trump threatened more tariffs and wants to nationalize elections, or rather, steal elections, and raided the Georgia election office, and Sinners won Best Picture at the Oscars, and that weird Tulsi Gabbard stuff, and Katy finally watched Lord of the Rings, and I got a brand new blender for my birthday. Big year. It's February? No, where'd I get this? Oh, it's from home. This is old. Whoa, really? No. Well, how do I know about the Oscars then? Am I psychic? Mick, am I psychic? Yes? Good. Whoa, hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year. What's your New Year's resolution? Mine is to better understand the passage of time. Like and subscribe, that'd be great. Leave a nice comment or a mean comment or a mix. I don't know what that would be, but good luck, folks. We got a podcast called Even More News. It's at the podcast store. It's also on this YouTube channel twice a week. We do a live stream now sometimes, usually the last Tuesday of the month. So keep your clickers peeled for that one. And we've got a patreon.com/somemore-news. And we've got merch at a merch store. And we've got the end of this. So goodbye.